Welcome to the DTB podcast presented by Bless Your Heart Nonprofit Corporation. I'm Jeree Jean-Bonjaro, Director of Bless Your Heart Nonprofit, and filling in for our regular host, Brennan Mathern, as we speak to the most interesting people up and down Bayou Lafourche. My brother and I, Ross, both serve on the Bless Your Heart board and on the DTB podcast team. We have fought nearly all of our lives for inclusiveness for those with disabilities. Our father had 6 siblings with Fragile X syndrome who were profoundly mentally handicapped. We were familiar with awkward looks in public, and our grandparents raised our uncles at a time when they were not accepted in public and were looked down upon. Since founding Bless Your Heart Nonprofit, we have worked tirelessly to ensure that everyone with disabilities in our community are included. And so today we are thrilled that we have Beau and Michelle Brooks with Upside Downs to speak with. In 2015, Beau and Michelle welcomed the birth of their son, Beau Spencer Brooks Jr., who was diagnosed with Down syndrome at birth, something that they were not prepared to hear. Since the birth of their son, they have founded a local nonprofit, Upside Downs. So Beau and Michelle, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Jeree.
So we always start our podcast off by asking, who are you? Where are you from? Who's your mom and dad?
Michelle Brooks. I'm from Lafayette, not a down the bayou girl, but I've been in Thibodaux for 17 years, so I guess that makes me local now.
Yes.
But yes, I'm from Lafayette and moved here after I got married to Beau 17 years ago.
And so where do y'all live?
We live in Thibodaux.
Yep. And I'm Beau Brooks. I am born and raised in Thibodaux. Only left to go to school for 3 years and then came right back and recruited Michelle to come live on the bayou with us. But we have 3 beautiful children, Ramey, who's 13, Mary Kate, who is 10, and, of course, the guy of the hour that we're talking about, Spencer, he is 7. My mom is from Thibodaux. She was a Chauvin. She was a teacher and principal at Sixth Ward Middle School. And my dad is originally from, the Franklin area, and he lives in Slidell. His name is George Brooks. My mom is Noah Lee Brooks. They're not together, obviously. And I have a brother who is an anesthesiologist at Thibodaux Regional.
Wow. Awesome. So y'all are both, obviously I'm an attorney. Y'all both are practicing attorneys, kind of how we met a little bit.
Yes.
So tell me, so this is just an overwhelming topic. Talk to me about, let's go back to the beginning. Before you have Spencer, Michelle, prenatal-wise, what is that like? Is it a normal pregnancy?
It was. At the beginning, it was, I had 2 girls, obviously, first, and then Spencer. At the beginning, for the most part, it really was fine. Dr. Bloss, who was my OBGYN for all of my kids, he had actually recommended that I undergo that genetic test only because I was 36 and considered, quote, high risk. I did not want to do it because, to me, no matter what that test revealed, wouldn't, determine what me keeping or not the baby. So I decided not to do it, and he convinced me otherwise. So he said, call your insurance and go do it. Well, I called the insurance, and it was going to be $800. So I said, you know what? It's not worth it. I'm not doing it. And it's just funny how it all works, because I think that was a blessing. So I never knew prenatally that he was going to have Down syndrome. But it wasn't until the end of my pregnancy where I started thinking he wasn't really moving as much as my girls. Mm-hmm. But I always reasoned, okay, it's because I'm having a boy.
Right.
I only had girls. Maybe the girls are more active. So that would be primarily the biggest change.
And I think that you had a little bit more sickness with Spencer's pregnancy.
And I think, too, is probably just I was completely exhausted.
Yeah.
Working, raising 2
girls.
Yeah. But, for the most part, it wasn't that different.
Yeah. So tell me what that's like. You and obviously the baby's born. And so how do you find this out?
So the baby's born. I go in. I had C-sections for all of my babies, emergency for Ramey, and then so obviously the next 2 kids were scheduled. So really by the 3rd, I wasn't really nervous. It was just kind of all right, wake up at 5 in the morning, be there at 7, and they roll you to the OR, and then boom, you have a baby within 20 minutes. So really, that's kind of how it happened. At the last minute before they rolled me into the OR, they were kind of having issues. You remember they had to call Dr. Bloss early because they were like losing the heartbeat. So that was kind of a little worrisome. But in any event, I get to the OR and the baby comes out. I hear the cry, which is what any mother and father are listening. So I was relieved, but
she was under anesthesia, too.
I was. I mean, obviously, I was under anesthesia. But the thing that was weird about the whole thing is that the nurse was holding him. I couldn't see him. But the first thing she said was, "Oh, wow, he's so tiny." I'm like, okay. I mean, my girls were not huge, but also they weren't so tiny. Beau and I aren't tiny people. And I'm like, what is going on? And he was full term.
Yeah.
They were like, he's 5 pounds. So I'm like, okay, that's strange. And then the next thing that came out of their mouth was, oh, he's floppy. Beau and I, we don't have any medical experience. So we're like, okay, he's tiny and he's floppy. And what was the real, the thing that I knew something was going on is they said, look, we're going to bring him to the nursery. With my girls, they were able to hand me to her, even though I couldn't hold him, but they lifted the curtain and I was able to see it. So I didn't even see him at this point. And so that's when I was like, okay, this is strange, but I was still under anesthesia, so I really didn't know. And then next thing you know, they rolled me back into the recovery room, and I did notice that people were staring. So that was also different. But like staring, and because everyone knew except me and Beau. They didn't say anything about Down syndrome when they delivered him.
Oh my gosh!
All they said was tiny, floppy. Let's go get him checked out in the nursery.
And the doctor also said we don't like his tone, and we didn't understand what that meant. I immediately thought like his coloring.
Right.
And that it just caught us off guard, but we never just assumed that something was wrong, because I walked up to where they were cleaning him off. He was screaming, yelling.
Right.
I checked to make sure he was a boy. And
all the fingers, all the toes.
Yes. And he was perfect, And so we couldn't understand what they meant. But normally I was able to walk out of the operating room with the baby, show the baby to our family who's there, and then they take the baby back to the nursery and whatnot. We weren't allowed to do that. And I can remember walking out, and my mom was standing there waiting to see the baby, which she had already seen the baby because they brought him out. And she had this look on her face, and she said, "Does he have Down syndrome?" I said, "Wait, what are you talking about?" And I got very upset with her.
Yeah. Because
I just couldn't understand why she was... What did she know that was ruining this moment for me? And then next thing you know...
Yeah, so he comes in the room, and I'm still trying to wake up from the anesthesia, and he was so angry, and he said, "Michelle, my mom, I'm so mad at my mom. She said he has Down syndrome, but he doesn't." And I'm like, okay, well, this is strange. All right, let me still recover. And so I think it was about an hour, I want to say. I mean, it was pretty long. And that's when our doctor, once again, whom we love and adore, he walked in and he was almost crying. So at that point, I thought Spencer had passed away.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, if a doctor's crying and... Right. So anyway, I was like, oh, my heart just sank. And he was trying to fight to get the words out. And he said, "I'm so sorry. We think your child has Down syndrome." And so to me, it was almost like a relief, because in this split second of a moment, I thought he was dead. And then he said Down syndrome. And then meanwhile, that's when Beau just lost it. Poor thing. There was a girl at Nichols in the nursing department shadowing, and she got a very good dose of reality as she entered her career in nursing, because Beau was screaming, he was crying. I could not console him. I mean, I was trying to recover, and no one knew what to do. Right. So it was a very, very, just very traumatic, almost for lack of a better word, experience in those moments after his birth that we had never experienced before with our girls.
Yeah. So tell me, do they eventually bring him in the room with y'all?
finally they bring him in the room, and I mean, he was so tiny. But I mean, he looked good, and it was so, one of the strangest things is a lot of people would, when they would meet him, they would tell us, he doesn't look like he has Down syndrome. I think people were still like not believing it, and then even in my head, I was like, well, wait, maybe he doesn't have Down syndrome. Everybody's like, he doesn't look like he has Down syndrome, because he really didn't. But newborns too, their eyes are closed and you can't really see. But yeah, we were about an hour or so later, they were able to bring him, and that's when they were doing. They have to send off they have to do a test. They have to send it off to an expert to officially diagnose him with Down syndrome, which took about 2 weeks. But they told us, the nurses and doctors assured us, like, hey, we are 99% sure he has Down syndrome. He has all the little marker stuff that we had never even known that was specific to babies with Down syndrome. But he was healthy. He did have low platelet count. So he did stay at Thibodeau for 3 days, and we had a little room. And then his markers kept going down, and that's whenever they had to transfer us to women's in Baton Rouge, which was a whole other traumatic thing, because he had to go by ambulance like a incubator thing, and we couldn't go in the ambulance with him. There was like a team of nurses and doctors that I think flew in, huh?
No, they drove.
They drove in, and then they took him away. And so I remember following the ambulance to Baton Rouge, and he stayed there for almost a week in the NICU, and he got 2 or 3 transfusions. And then Beau and I stayed in a hotel because you can't stay in the NICU. So that was tough. We had to leave our girls for about a week and just deal. He was hooked up with all these, these wires, and it was a very difficult time, but we had so much support from our friends and our family and the community. It just, they really helped us out, during those first few crucial days.
Yeah, that's great. Tell me though, like when they come in, they tell you that your son has Down syndrome, like what's going through your head? Like, are you like looking into the future? Like, what is your anticipation of what your life's like looking like?
Well, that was pretty tough for me. I immediately saw all of my dreams, and what you envision your children or your child or your first son, the things you get to do with him, that immediately went out the window. I started thinking about the problems that were going to be in our life now, the complications, how much harder things were going to be, the expense of having a child with a disability, and being a parent just in general is not what I thought it was going to crack up to be, because it's extremely hard, and I have a lot of gray hair because of my girls. And so I just started thinking about all of those negative things, and I was not allowing myself to see the good that came about Spencer's birth and his life. I didn't hold him for 12 hours. I didn't touch him. I didn't do anything. I didn't want anything to do with him. And there was very few people I would talk to. I think it was really only Michelle and her sister. I didn't want to see or speak to anybody else. And then later on that day, one of our friends who also has a child with Down syndrome reached out to me and said, if you need to talk, let me know. And I took him up on that offer.
Yeah. And so who's that?
His name is Sean Harrison, Sean and Julie Harrison. They have a son who is like 3 years old.
2.5 years older than Spencer.
Sean Patrick. And, I met with him, and I said, please just tell me something to make this pain feel better. Make this go away, fix it. And he told me, it's the craziest thing. He said, you have to mourn the loss of the child you thought you were going to have before you can truly appreciate the gift that you've been given.
Wow.
And it's weird, and I still get chills to this moment, because it was like a light just switched in my head.
Right.
And there was this feeling of calmness that just came over my body. And I left, and I went straight to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I held him, and I cried again. And I hugged Michelle, and I said, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
This is going to be fine.
Yeah.
So it's been a big journey and learning journey since his birth, but that was the toughest part
Yeah,
for me, for sure.
for sure. Thank goodness for, supportive friends like that. And so tell us how, like, because really that's one of y'all's missions with Upside Downs is really to be that support for families who experience with trying to lessen that trauma that you described that y'all kind of experienced upon Spencer's birth. Tell me, like, how does Upside Down get started? Who's involved in that? And like, what do y'all plan to do?
So when the baby was delivered in Thibodeau, there was no social worker that came talk to us to kind of help us with the situation. When we were transferred to Women's in the NICU, we were almost immediately greeted by a social worker who had information about Down syndrome, but then also brought to us this basket. And in the basket wasn't things that were telling you sign up for early steps, do all this stuff. This is your child's life expectancy. It was more of a celebration of congratulations, you still had a baby. Don't let that moment, don't let the Down syndrome diagnosis overtake the joy of a new baby.
Right.
And we were like, man, this is really awesome. And, you have a lot of free time when you're just sitting in the NICU all day. And I remember watching Spencer struggle to do simple things that our girls could do. It was harder for him to take bottles, his muscle tone, things like that. And I just stared into his eyes, and I promised him that I was going to change the world for him. And we immediately said, we want to do these type of new parent baskets in the Thibodeau Homa area because it wasn't being done.
Right.
And that's how we started it. And we reached out to Julie and Sean and said, we'd like to do this nonprofit. And they were like, absolutely, we're on board. We reached out to the family who was doing these baskets, told them our idea. They were very helpful. And so we put a board together, and Spencer was born in November, and in February I filed the articles, and we got our tax ID number, and we officially launched in April of 2016.
Fast track.
Yeah, and then eventually later on we took over Ella's Endeavor, who was the basket that we received. We joined forces with them.
That's
they
awesome.
were now a part of Upside Down. So our basket program is called Ella's Endeavor, and we have baskets throughout the entire state of Louisiana.
That's awesome.
So our reach is a lot further.
So tell me about like the baskets. Like, what is in them?
So it's changed throughout the years, but basically it's things that, well, there's a gift card in there for the families to go out and eat. We put some Upside Downs merch. We have like a little Mickey Mouse. What do you call that, plush toy or something? Because
like a lovey. Little thing. Because Spencer was born on Mickey Mouse's birthday, so we wanted something kind of personal. Even though when the family that receives the basket doesn't know that, that's just something like special. And then diapers, wipes,
and then
just
like
some neat little
a children's book.
Right.
And we try to find one that features some aspect of Down syndrome.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna get in our basket anything that's going to take you away from trying to enjoy that moment.
Right.
We don't want our new families focusing on what is Down syndrome, the medical aspect of it, or what do I need to do next. It's stop, don't miss this moment. Because our friend Alyssa, who started Ella's Endeavor, she talks about how she had so many pictures of her son Noah when he was born, and very few of her daughter Ella when she was born, and that was their whole mission. They don't want other parents to be robbed of that joy of having a baby.
Right.
And so we agreed 100% with that and ran with it.
That's wonderful. So I know that Upside Downs has moved on. That y'all are more than just hospital baskets at this point. I mean, y'all far surpassed the hospital basket mission. What else are y'all doing?
So that's interesting because I have to go back to our launch. When we launched in April, we did not imagine the community to come around and support us. And I think within our first month, we had raised over $40,000.
Wow.
And our board sitting back going, okay, it does not cost
Right.
$40,000. If we average around 100 baskets a year that we give out or mail out, and so the cost to do the baskets don't equal $40,000. So we started reaching out to people in the community and said, what can we do? What other things can we do? So now where we stand is we have two big events every year. Our magical dance party is this huge celebration free of charge to individuals with Down syndrome and their immediate family, and it's a night for them to just come and have fun. We have characters, food, all kind of different little face painting. We give away
$4,000 Disney
a
trip,
to one family every year,
and everything's free.
Right.
That was our big thing when after Spencer was born, and we were trying to figure out what else to do with the baskets. Everyone said they love to dance, they love to sing, they love music. Hence, that's why we did the magical dance party. But we figured so many parents are just so consumed with extra medical bills,
Right.
therapy appointments, and just to have that camaraderie of these families getting together from all over and just being able to watch their children, from little toddlers to young adults, all with Down syndrome and their families to connect and the siblings to connect, all free of charge. That was really the first mission after the baskets, and it's been awesome. Our volunteers always say, this is one of the best, just to see. It's just a happy moment.
So when is that every year?
It's in the fall.
It's in the fall. It's usually going to be right in the beginning of October or at the end of September. We try to do it in October, which is Down Syndrome Awareness Month. But we try not to compete with things that we know in our area would stop people from coming. So you have to look at LSU football schedule. You have to look at the Nichols football schedule. So, it's usually going to be beginning of October, end of September. It falls around my birthday every year.
So if a family maybe is new to the Down syndrome community or is part of the Down syndrome community and hasn't gotten connected with Upside Downs and would want more information, how would they reach you?
They can go to our website and shoot us an email and somebody or any of our socials, and because that's the most common way, and that's the way we've been able to reach so many people is through social media.
Okay.
Yes, I would go. Facebook is probably the best way. That's where we, put out all of our information. So later on this summer, we're going to really be promoting the magical dance party, and then Instagram too. But yeah, social media primarily. But we do have a website, www.upside-downs.org.
Okay. And tell me about, you said y'all have another event. Y'all do
So
two
we
big
started
events every
doing
year.
the 321 dash, which is it's just a fun day. We have a 5K race that starts the event, and then later on the individuals with Down syndrome do a 0.1 little walk around and get medals, and it's crazy because we had over 800 people sign up just to do the 5K.
Wow.
So after the 5K and the dash, we have bands that play. We have a jambalaya cook-off. We have face painting, snowballs, cotton candy, you name it. And then we have little rides for the kids. And we hold it at the Bayou Country Children's Museum because it gives another avenue for people to
Go.
to do stuff.
Yeah.
And our turnout this year was insane.
Despite it being freezing.
It was cold.
Oh my goodness, it was so cold. But yeah, I know at our board meeting right before the dash, someone was saying it's the largest 5K in the area.
That is excellent.
And this was only our second year. So it continues to get bigger and bigger. But once again, that's a way for not only kids or adults with Down syndrome and their families, it's the community. And I think that seeing just, because a lot of people still don't interact with kids or adults with special needs. I mean, even though it's a lot more accepting than it was when we grew up, a lot of times you still don't go to school or go to church or, and so when you have these community events that gives an opportunity, like our friends always say, this has just opened up a special place in my heart because just seeing everyone and and you'll see people like random people just crying, like watching just someone and other kids like helping the kids with Down syndrome at the dash and cheering for them along the race route. You could do it. It really is just a beautiful thing to witness. So
That's
we're
wonderful.
so fortunate that it's actually very therapeutic for us to do this because giving people that opportunity is just an awesome thing to witness.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, the 321 dash usually falls right around World Down Syndrome Day, which is on March 21st, which represents 3 copies of the 21st chromosome. But something special happened this year, and one of my friends, Craig Blackburn, he's around my age. He has Down syndrome. He ran the Crescent City Classic last year, and so this year they were training another individual with Down syndrome to run the Crescent City Classic, and the Crescent City Classic allows them to wear the 321 bib.
Really?
So we took off with that, and we presented the 321 bib to Craig Blackburn this year to run our 5K, and I anticipate us doing that to the same individual who ran the Crescent City
That is
last
tremendous.
year.
Yeah,
it was
tremendous.
It was a cool moment.
Yeah, they train. There's a group of guys out of New Orleans that'll train. They pick a new person each year, and they train them. They run with them. And they make it. I mean, they run it. No matter how hard.
That's tough.
Yeah, better than me, for sure.
So getting back to, I guess, what your original question is, when we first started this, it was, and with your involvement with Bless Your Heart, you have to figure out what works. So we were putting on various events. We would put on an Easter egg extravaganza. We did some awesome parent brunches, which allowed parents to connect and hear from speakers. And so we figured out what works, and we roll with that. And so those two are our big major events. But there's other things that we do. We go out into schools and give presentations about Down syndrome. We go out and speak to nurses and doctors about how to deliver diagnosis. We're always getting phone calls from other parents about different resources and things. And then one of the things what we were just recently able to do is finally hire an executive director.
Awesome.
Which, our goal for that is to be able to do more and provide more resources. We're looking at possibly doing some medical and educational seminars or mini conferences to offer to teachers and to families and things like that. So we have a lot of things in the works that we're trying to get all the pieces to fall together.
Right. I think that's at a like we were kind of talking before we started recording, but we all said that we were kind of raised at a time where you really didn't talk about people who had disabilities, and they for sure weren't included. And then I guess we were raised more down the bayou, I guess, than y'all were. So I felt like we were all more. It was worse here, people with disabilities were not included. They couldn't participate in sports. You weren't. It was frowned upon if you left your own home. And to we're living at a time now where we can accept people who have disabilities for who they are and focus on their abilities and celebrate them. I mean, I think that's just, it's a wonderful thing. It's something that I know is really close to me and my brother's heart. We've tried our whole lives. We've always been in inclusion classes. We always were friends with the kids who were in the, special needs class, always bringing them out for recess to make sure that they were playing with the other kids. So I know this is super important to us, not just for the Down syndrome community, but really for the community of people, adults and children with disabilities in this area. When you open up that dialogue, I just think that's so important. So important.
True.
And I think it's because of our generation of parents coming through who know the importance of exposing their children to it,
Absolutely.
I just think our generation is a little bit more open to being more accepting.
Tell me what the girls think I don't know that's ever.
Oh.
Like, how did they feel about having a brother with Down syndrome?
So, I mean, Raimi was 5 when he was born, and Mary Kate was 3. So Mary Kate had no clue. Raimi really didn't either, but there was this show, Born This Way, that came out on A&E the week Spencer was born, which is crazy. As a matter of fact, we would watch it every week with Raimi, and just to kind of ease her into it. I mean, she's 5. Her little brain has no idea. And she would always ask, why are they speaking Spanish? You know, because a lot of people with Down syndrome, they don't speak as clearly. And so I remember after like the 4th or 5th show, we were like, Raimi, you know your brother is like those. And she was just, matter of fact, oh, okay. You know, I mean, I think little kids, you just tell them how it is. It's like, he has Down syndrome. Oh, okay, great. And so Raimi was always more of like the motherly figure with Spencer, only because she was older. And then Mary Kate was more of like the best friend. And even 7 years now, Raimi's still the motherly figure, trying to discipline him, trying to get him. Whereas Mary Kate just wants to, I mean, he can ask her to do anything, and she wants to play with him rather than her friends. So we have to tell Mary Kate, go play with your friends. Your brother's always going to be here. But they're just, it's sweet. I mean, siblings of, having a sibling with Down syndrome, I think makes the siblings a better person in the long run. They have so much empathy. They have so much patience. Oh my goodness. I mean, patience is probably the hardest thing for us to deal with Spencer because, he just doesn't listen. And we're stressed out and working and busy. But Raimi and Mary Kate are just, it's a beautiful thing to watch. But look, they are, I tell people, we are a typical family. Just because he has Down syndrome, they still fight. There are still times that Mary Kate's like, you're driving me nuts. Get away from me. I want to be in my room with my friends, and then Raimi is trying to, why? What are you doing? You don't listen, So with all that being said, he is, at the end of the day, Spencer is a typical 7-year-old boy.
Absolutely.
Who his face is so full of mud by the end of the day. All he wants to do is play outside. So, and it goes to show you have to treat individuals with Down syndrome just like anyone else.
Right.
Because, they may take a little longer to do simple things, or they may be a little more like ornery or stubborn, but, they're just like you and I.
Right. Tell me Hurricane Ida was, devastated here. And I know, Thibodeau was pretty profoundly impacted. Tell me, what is it like having a child with a disability going through such a big change like that? Was y'all's
absolutely miserable? It was absolutely. There was a point in time where I was like, I don't know if we're going to make it through this, because one thing that you can ask anyone who has a child with Down syndrome, and I'm sure other special needs as well, when you get them off their routine, it is miserable. They just are creatures of habit. And look, Spencer, he goes to Thibodeau Elementary. They got out of school not last week, but the week after. And his summer school in Lafourche doesn't start till next week. It has been our house. You can walk in and something's going on. Honey, what we call Beau's mom, is stressed to the max. Beau and I are trying to come, leave work at different times to help her out. We have a babysitter trying to help out too. He doesn't behave, and he's out of his routine. So with the hurricane, our house
broken lamp before we came over here.
Glass light bulb shattered.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he likes to throw stuff, and so Hurricane Ida happens, and luckily we were fortunate. We did have some damage to our house, but nothing like the majority of Lafourche Parish had. So we actually, Beau and I still were trying to work, and the kids were out of school, and and Honey, my mother-in-law, had damage to her home, so she couldn't help us. So that's why we evacuated to Lafayette, just because I have a brother, sister, my mom, all there to help with the kids.
Well, let's just step back real quick. So our fence was completely down, and that means that we had to be confined in the house because Spencer, you have to watch him 24/7 back then, or he's going to take off and go somewhere. So without electricity, no electronics, no anything, and without a fence in the backyard, we were stuck. So Can you imagine running the generator? You have all these wires, him not having anything to do.
Right.
It just was so stressful. And so it forced us to go to Lafayette, and we kind of moved in with Michelle's brother. But to say that situation was better, it's not, because we're in an environment that...
Still not his place.
And it doesn't have the safety precautions that we have in our own home.
Right.
So it was a wild ride, and Michelle got to the point where she enrolled the kids in school.
At school in Lafayette, because I didn't know when school was going to start.
We got
the school
brand
wasn't
new
telling
uniforms.
us.
We were getting all this stuff.
So they all went to school for one day.
And
then our school said, hey, so they actually, one day my kids went to school in Lafayette, they all went to Fatima, who they have a great Down syndrome program. So it was the one day all my 3 kids went to school together. It was picture day.
Yeah.
So, so I have a school picture with the Fatima emblem one day, and then 2 days later we come back to
Well, then the next day they canceled school because of a hurricane that was coming through. And then we get the message that power was coming back on, and then
and y'all are like, am I getting punked? Like, is this a joke?
It was wild. But look,
oh my goodness.
At the end of the day, we come back, we get back in our routine, and oh my goodness, we were just so thankful that was our biggest problem, because we know so many people around here, still are going through a lot of terrible effects of the storm. But they are creatures of habit. So we're glad we're all in school.
Back to normal.
Back to normal.
I understand that. So, Beau, recently you've been appointed to the National Down Syndrome Congress Board.
Yes.
Yes. And so tell me, that's like a big deal.
I was pretty excited about that, because it's a national organization. They're the leading national resource of support and information for Down syndrome from birth till adulthood. And so it was such an honor to even be selected for that. Our first engagement with this organization was after Spencer was born, about 8 months after we attended our first convention. And they're the only national organization that puts on a big convention every year, and they bring approximately about 4,000 people there.
Wow.
And so, the National Down Syndrome Congress has the experts in the field, the connections with, the leading experts in Down syndrome. They are on Capitol Hill, advocating, trying to push legislation for the betterment of individuals with disabilities. So, I mean, it's such an honor to be on this stage with the people that I'm working with, because I never imagined a little boy from Thibodaux would be, serving in this capacity.
I mean, I just want you to know, like, as I would say, colleague or just person in the community, I just think it is like tremendous. I can't even say that enough, that the things that y'all do with Upside Downs and you serving on this national council, and how wonderful it is that Spencer has parents who love him, accept him for who he is, and really advocate for him on a national level,
It's crazy.
Well, anyone that knows Beau, this will not surprise him, and I hope I can, is it okay to say ass on a podcast? But I always tell people, Beau does not do anything half-ass. And when we were in the NICU in Baton Rouge, he told Spencer, I'm going to change the world for you. 4 months later, he started a nonprofit, and look where he is now. So this is honestly all Beau. I mean, I'm along for the journey. I try to do what I can, but like I said, anyone who knows Beau, he drives me crazy sometimes, a lot. But it's true. I think anybody can vouch for that. I'm sure you can too, Jeray.
Well, thanks for the compliment.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
That's a compliment.
In all fairness.
That's a compliment,
absolutely.
Michelle. So tell me, like, when y'all were in that NICU room, like, did you ever imagine you would be where you are right now in the Down syndrome community?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No. And I think it's just a true testament to the community. I've said that from day one, because we could only do so much if, the amount of just support, both financial and emotional and physical, in every sense of the way, it's just been a huge blessing to have our community stand behind us 100%.
And it goes back to 100% of us getting out into the community with these children and the use of social media.
Right.
I was able to take a free platform and use it to raise awareness, and you know, the reach that we had is just so much broader than the traditional aspect of it. So, you know, we're lucky that we had that tool. If I would start the organization now, as far along as all these platforms have come, I don't know if we'd be as successful. We'd still have a lot of community support, but, you know, we're selling our shirts and different things all over the country.
Wow.
Like, and, you know, when it's World Down Syndrome days and schools have dress down days, people are calling us for shirts to wear, you know, and when you see people in the community that you have no idea who they are and they're sporting one of your shirts, kind of like Flirty Girl picking up your shirt. That was huge.
That was awesome.
So if you're listening, Flirty Girl, we'd like to do a Down syndrome shirt with you.
I have Lauren's cell phone number, so I think we could probably arrange that.
I love it.
Yeah. That is, it's amazing. The support of the community is really what has kind of boosted Bless Your Heart. We always, like, one thing I always say when we talk to, you know, I have to talk to people, is that people want to help. They just kind of don't know how.
That's true.
And so my brother always says that we're like, lack of better terms, like the conduit that like makes those connections for people. Like, I can identify people who have needs and then people who want to help, just making sure that we get them together.
That's what I love about it. You'll post like, hey, does anyone have a camper, or does anyone have this? And I'm like, okay, I may not have a camper, but if you have a friend, or you have the resources or tools to buy one, it's
amazing. And I agree, Beau. I mean, social media, people have a lot to say about it all the time, but when used, we always say use your powers for good. When you put your effort and energy into doing good things, social media can be such a great tool for you. Absolutely. So kudos to both of you for really, really capturing that with Upside Downs. Tell me about Spencer now. So we've got through all the organizations. Tell me about that guy. What is he like?
So I almost had like a meltdown recently because, so Michelle says he's a typical 7-year-old boy, and he loves trucks. He's obsessed with my truck. He wants to hook a trailer and a boat up to my truck. If he could do it 100 times every day, he wants to do it. He wants to pull. My dad built him a little trailer to hook up to his little ride-on toy. He'll pull that thing all day. He just will not leave my side.
That's wonderful.
No, it's not wonderful.
Not wonderful.
It's not
I'm enjoying it. I have no qualms about it. I did it for so many years. But he is obsessed everywhere Beau goes.
He wants to do every single thing that I do, and it is cute.
Right,
you know?
it is.
And when I sit back, but, you know, when you come home from work every day, and he's glued to your hip and you can't do anything, or when you wake up in the morning and he's glued to your hip, you can't do anything, it just gets kind of, you know, rough. And so Spencer requires us to do so much more than what we would normally have to do with our girls. And when I say that, I mean traveling wise, or going to family's house for holidays. You know, their house is not childproof. You have to worry about him falling in the bayou, or, you know, something like that. So it requires so much more work that's very tiring. But what we're struggling the most with him right now, were you looking for what's the tough stuff or the good stuff?
Well, I'm going to let you say the tough stuff, but then I'm going to ask you all about the good stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Best for last.
So the hardest thing right now is we have been trying to have him potty trained. And it is mentally and physically exhausting. And I don't want to get gross on this podcast, but just know that keep us in your prayers. We've gotten to the point where we even have a therapist that is doing potty training therapy with him, because and the thing about individuals with Down syndrome is that you're on their watch.
Right.
They're going to do the same things we do just when they're ready to do it.
Right.
So Spencer knows how to go to the potty. He knows how to do all that stuff. He's just not wanting to do it yet. And so
Stubborn.
that's a tough part. And, you know, Michelle talks about his behavior, and I think, you know, we're getting ready to do some testing, not ADHD stuff type yet, but 80% I think of individuals with Down syndrome suffer from sleep apnea, which can create behavioral issues. And I just found out that ADHD is commonly misdiagnosed when for sleep apnea.
Right.
So we have that sleep study test. Good luck with that, Michelle. Coming up soon.
Yes, I'm honored to.
I'm gonna pray for you.
She was
too.
nominated.
All night. Yeah.
But other than that, that's really the hard stuff.
So tell me about the good stuff.
Yeah, he really is so much fun, and he's so sweet. And you talk to his teachers and his therapists and everyone. He has such a kind heart, and he feels harder. I know that's kind of may not be easy to understand what I'm trying to say, but when he, like the stories we hear at school from his teacher, like if a kid is crying or if a kid is hurt, he just feels. You know,
Their pain. He empathizes.
Yeah, he does.
Right.
And he's just he wants to comfort, even if the teacher's having a bad day.
Right.
And look, if he sees Mary Kate, I mean, Ramey really doesn't cry anymore, but if he sees Mary Kate upset, I mean, he will stop what he's doing, and he is almost crying too. Oh. He does not like when people are sad. He does not like when people are upset. So he's just such a, he has such a kind heart. He's so much fun. He really is. I mean, he just, when you're having a bad day, look, sometimes Beau and I will be so stressed out, and then he'll say the most random thing. And we're like, oh my gosh, okay, this is our life.
Right,
this is fun. And you know, something that's funny that happened early on when Beau was like trying to grieve and try to figure out this new life we're on. I remember him saying like, oh my gosh, Michelle, he is going to have to live with us the rest of our life. And I'm like, yes. But on the bright side, when all of our friends are going through the empty nest syndrome, we're still going to be having fun with Spencer. So, I mean, it's true. I mean, some of those fears that I had, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to him when Beau and I aren't here? All the great stuff, you know, overshadows that. And it's true. I mean, he's loved, he's happy, he's fun. He still is a pain in the butt. He still doesn't listen. He's still, so I don't want to sugarcoat anything, but yeah, he really is just, he loves music. He's all into.
He gives the best hugs. He gives he does the best cuddles and kisses. He's just, there's this pure sweetness about him. It's not always spicy.
Right.
Since we call him Spicy Spencer. But
he acknowledges everybody. If we're outside, good morning, hello, shakes everyone's hands at the beach. He literally will walk up and down the beach, shaking everyone's hand, and in exchange, he tries to get a sip of their beer. You know, hi, how are you doing?
Like
good morning.
Can I have a sip?
Yeah. He's a charmer.
Shadowing.
Yes,
I see that.
As his speech is developing more and more, it's so hilarious. The things he's coming home and just saying, or he's repeating. Like, he's obsessed with Morgan Wallen, Luke Combs, and because of his sisters now, Taylor Swift.
Oh.
So. And he's obsessed with Bluetooth speakers, and he doesn't want a little one. He wants the big one to play it as loud as possible. He can work an iPad better than any of us in this room.
Right.
And has done some crazy things at friends' houses with iPads where they're like, I don't even know how to do this.
Oh, my goodness.
He's hooked up music through their AC temperature controls.
Yeah.
No way.
How did this happen?
Yeah. He's just, like, very methodical with all that stuff. But one of the funniest stories, and I'm going to quit because I can go on, but I was cutting the grass one day, and you know, he has to be on my lap or watching or cutting in his little lawnmower, and I went and I accidentally put my lawnmower in the ditch. And so, excuse my language on this thing, but I'm frustrated because I'm like, how am I going to get this out? A brand new lawnmower, all this stuff.
My goodness.
He comes walking back behind the fence and he goes, God damn it, Dad.
Calling you out, Beau.
So, you know, he'll just have these little moments like, what the heck? And just these little sayings that it's hilarious. But I apologize if I offended anybody.
You're fine. You're fine. Oh, my goodness. So he's a joy.
He's a joy.
So, Beau, you mentioned that with Upside Downs, y'all go out and speak with medical providers and educators and So Michelle, you talked about his birth experience kind of being a little bit traumatic when your doctor apologizes to you that your son has Down syndrome. What is y'all's advice to medical providers?
We try to put a positive spin on it. So our experience, and we know our doctor and the staff obviously did not do this intentionally, but we want the experience for new parents to be positive. Yes, we do know everyone has to grieve in their own way, and it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be sad or mad, but we try to talk to these medical providers and just the first words out of your mouth, just congratulations. It's as simple as that.
Right.
That's those little things, which are the first words that a new parent hears, is so impactful. So that's really what we love to do. And, we are blessed with such a great medical community in our area. And it's things that they don't teach you in med school.
Right.
You know, just like things that the three of us, they don't teach you that in law school, how to argue in court. It's experiences, life experiences. So that's really what it is. We try to just say, please just engage and say happy thoughts and, comfort them if they need anything, or lead them to the right avenue, the social worker or
us. Part of our message, it was important for me my story of his birth is very raw. It offends some people to think I experienced that and wouldn't touch my son. But the rawness comes with a truthfulness about it. And to capture their attention, our message was that story initially. But it's also to get our foot in the door so that they do have someone to turn to and say, because as a doctor, you're consoling your patient. Don't come with the negative messages. Right. Try to be a little bit more positive. But now I'm gonna call upside downs or give them the information. Here's our pamphlets, and there's a huge community of support out there.
Right.
And
we're waiting and willing to help. And that was our key thing in getting into all of these doctors and nurses. And, I would speak to nursing students at Nichols and things like that. Just trying to get them to understand the experience, and maybe they can change a parent's experience. And it's crazy. The first class of nursing students we spoke to, I guess one person in the room heard. There were a bunch of people crying, but not long after that, I received a message on Facebook, and her cousin had just had a baby in New Orleans. Wow. Met her on Highway 90, brought her the basket, and it was full swing. And then Danielle actually became
great friends,
and very involved too. So it's just getting the message out there.
That's wonderful. I love that. I love that y'all love y'all boy that much. Tell me about, so we would, growing up with a family member who had a disability, we would see, looks in public, and maybe people had questions. But I feel like, and I understand where they're coming from, they have a question, they don't want to stare, but they don't really know what to say because they don't want to offend you. So I guess my question to you is, if someone has a question about Spencer, somebody wants to talk to Spencer, or someone, what would you prefer? Would you prefer that they not, or would you prefer they engage with you?
I love when they engage with me. And, very rarely do we encounter situations where we do get the stares. Luckily, this is how far we've come. But no, if people are staring and I could tell they're very inquisitive and they don't know what to do or what to say, absolutely, I would love and welcome any questions because I feel like it's a learning experience. If parents try to steer the kid away, then did you teach the kid anything?
Right.
Then the kid's going to learn what their parents did. When you see someone with a disability, hurry up and walk the other way. Right. So I'd rather the mom or dad just say, hey, just talk to him, even if it's not about what does he have, Down syndrome. Just how are you? How old are you? To show their children that it's comfortable to talk to people with a special need. So no, we do. We definitely would rather families engage with us than turn their head and walk away.
Right. That's wonderful. Good. I'm glad you have that message out.
Yes.
Because more people need to. So at the end of every show, we have a round of rapid fire questions relating to life on the bayou. You can give us one-word answers or expand on your answers if you feel like you need to explain. It is up to you. So are you ready?
I hope so.
Who's going first? Michelle answers first, and then I go second.
Okay, Michelle. White beans. Do they go on top of the jambalaya or on the side?
Both. If the jambalaya is dry, on top, and if the jambalaya is wet, on the side.
Good call. Good call. What about you, Beau?
If it's a plate lunch like you get everywhere down here and during the hurricane, like every day, I'm definitely throwing the white beans on top.
Yeah. So you're from Lafayette, though. Is that like a thing over there?
No, because my parents are both from New Orleans. They just ended up in Lafayette, so my family's very confused about
where
culture.
They belong.
So I do have to say, when I moved to Thibodaux, I was like, this is interesting. Like crawfish in Lafayette, you put Tony's on top, and which drives Beau nuts. And here I'm like, oh, okay, it doesn't go on the top.
I don't even know if you had white beans before you moved here.
Probably not.
Probably not.
But I love them.
So if you can have a final meal, what would it be and who would have cooked it?
It would be butter beans and like a sticky chicken that my grandmother used to cook when I was a kid.
Shad bet. That sounds good.
Anything my grandmother cooked. That's who taught me.
It's funny how those two things go together.
100%.
Butter beans on rice and sticky chicken.
I think yours is what, fried shrimp, where you take the grease from the shrimp fry and put it over rice?
No. One of our friends is from where?
From here?
From here. And
I didn't know that was a thing.
She told us the other day
that is a
that
thing.
you put the grease from when you fry the shrimp and you put it over rice. Anyway, I would say I ate terrible food my whole life. And then when I met Beau, he opened up my palates in every sense of the word. But I would say his shrimp stew.
Yeah, she always
yours?
did like that.
Like a fricassee?
Yes.
Oh,
They call it fricassee down here.
Yeah, fricassee.
got it.
Yeah.
That's another rapid fire question, the difference between stew and fricassee.
That would be a good one. That would be good. And actually, you're supposed to say it fricassee.
Fricassee.
Yeah. So what is your favorite snowball flavor?
Tiger blood.
Dreamsicle.
That's a good choice. Jar roux. Sometimes or never.
Okay, so when you are this busy working and you don't have time,
Right.
I pretty much use jar roux all the time now. I know that's a sin, but you can't taste the difference. I'll use a rotisserie chicken with the jar roux and make a stock with the rotisserie chicken, and it's amazing.
Sign me
You were
up.
losing fans by the second.
I am. But let me tell you, before I had so many kids and gray hair, I was spending many a days, you can ask Michelle,
And I was like, you are crazy.
stirring the roux.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also feel like a real roux needs to be cooked like outside because you're
Yeah.
gonna like make your house smell
Stink.
bad. But like a jar roux, the smell doesn't get out as much.
I agree.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
At a Down the Bayou wedding reception, what is the first song that comes to your mind that you know you're gonna hear?
Brown Eyed Girl or Tinana?
I was going to say Tina Not Too, only because I'd never heard that song until I moved here.
Which means that Bayou Lafourche is officially the Cajun Bayou,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that'll do it for this episode of the DTB podcast. Thank you to our guests, Michelle and Beau Brooks. We sincerely appreciate your time. You can subscribe to the DTB podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at the DTB podcast. You can follow Bless Your Heart Nonprofit on Facebook or on Twitter at BYH Nonprofit. You can donate to Bless Your Heart via Venmo at Bless Your Heart Nonprofit or via PayPal at blessyourheartnonprofit@gmail.com. That'll wrap it up for us on the DTB podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for our next episode. Until then, this is Jure Jean Bonjaro. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.